Ladies and gentlemen, please, the panel can enter now. Sorry for the logistic problem we faced. Just a moment. Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, welcome to AGRF and DROM 2023. First of all, I want to apologize for the change of the session. To be honest, this has been the name of the session from day one, but somehow we have some communication misunderstanding. So please welcome to the pathway towards a more resilient and inclusive supply chain for Africa. A little bit back information about myself. My name is Chen Chen. I'm the lead on Asian Partnership of AGRA, AGRA. Before joining AGRA, I was trapped in the ivory tower. I was a professor in Renmin University based in Beijing, but somehow I got tired of the ivory tower and decided to come to Africa and try to do something to help the local people here. So the reason I have been thinking about value chain for Africa for a long time is actually contributed to my dear friend Dr. Nega and another friend who is very unfortunately couldn't be here with us. Because at AGRA, I hope African government score deal with Asian countries, exporting avocado, exporting chili pepper, exporting whatever we can produce here to emerging markets in Asia to balance the trade flow. But as long as I've been working in this sector for quite a while, I realize the problem not lays on the side of the border in Asia. The problem always happens here in Africa because we don't have a resilient and strong supply chain here that can meet the market needs over there in Asia. So that's the reason originally for me to want to do a session about this. And ironically, you can see the keynote speech, Mr. Gary Darren Brown, Managing Director for Wayfreight Logistics, is based in Dubai, the Middle East. He could not be here because his flight got canceled last night at the last minute. While we communicated a little bit about this, I say it's somehow a very funny metaphor for the topic we're discussing here today. Like an expert in logistics in Africa for nearly 30 years, but he himself couldn't solve the logistic challenge to come over here to Dar es Salaam. So instead of having Mr. Brown being us here in person, last night I asked Ms. Brown to make a video at the VIP room in the airport, and so that we can share his thoughts on logistics in Africa. Please, the control room.
Good afternoon. My name is Darren Brown, and welcome to the AGRF Food Systems Forum 2023 in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. And I'll be talking about food supply chains and the resilience of them. My special thanks and warm welcome to the honourable and esteemed excellencies, being the presidents, prime ministers and leaders of the African continent for attending, honourable ministers, honourable deputy ministers, the AGRF, the AGRA dignitaries, distinguished guests, fellow logisticians, ladies and gentlemen, and I trust all protocols have been observed. I wish to have been there with you today. However, logistics ironically affected my travel, which is not always uncommon in Africa, what we are talking about today. In relevance to that, the 34th President of the United States, being President Eisenhower, also the general of the D-Day landings, said, "You will not find it difficult to prove that battles, campaigns, and even wars are won or lost primarily because of logistics." And thus this shows the importance of logistics and supply chains in today's world. The theme is recover, regenerate, and act. And my focus is more upon the regenerate and act portions of these themes. Food security is a priority for not only Africa, but the world, especially after the COVID supply chain chaos and congestions, and it's a critical factor. And this affects both import and export foodstuffs worldwide. Africa has a very fast growing population, and this needs to be employed, given relevance, fed, along with exporting of food to the rest of the world. It is now critical that strategic partnerships are formed, not just one company trying to do everything, and not just one country trying to do everything, but real alliances that satisfy the object of reliability and visibility. This is from the field of production of foodstuffs onwards, right to the end consumer. So producers and logistics systems need to be aligned and act together in unison. For instance, traceability from the farm or producer onwards through the supply chain is becoming more and more critical and relevant for compliance issues, fair trading, proper profit sharing, quality, and so forth. The Africa Free Trade Agreement will create the world's biggest free trade area, but countries and governments need to enforce actions and the free trade barriers. It will take real policy enactment for this to work well and for all to get along and not feel as if they are losing out or getting taken over in a marketplace. As Rodney King, in reference to the 1991 riots in Los Angeles, said, "Why can't we all just get along?" And Martin Luther King said, "We don't trust each other because we don't communicate enough." Communication now is a key aspect in supply chains and trust. Infrastructure development such as ports improvements, roads, warehousing, and investments in essential physical improvements lead to saving costs, saving time, and speed to market. These are being the hard investments, with the soft investments being such as IT, blockchain, having real logistics experts working hand in hand with such as AGRA, farmers, producers, to really create a resilient and inclusive supply chain that is fit for purpose. SEZs, SIZs are also a good start to develop value-add services and a catalyst to further food production and processing in Africa from the field to the end user, along with further industrialization. We need to grow, transport, sort, process, package, and then distribute the end products to not only into Africa, but to the rest of the world. For instance, why is it that cashew nuts are sent out raw for processing in other countries, or cotton is sent out raw? Why not produce a fabric, then produce clothing, and then send it out to Africa or to the rest of the world? And that's really what the SEZs and SIZs are there. These are a catalyst for that change, but they really have to have the right legislation and tax-free incentives to build this up, because you create knowledge transfer, technology investment, but this medium will kickstart things, but overall you then have to look at the next phase of development within the food processing unit. IT use and integrated systems need to be across countries, right? These should affect customs authorities, groups of logistic providers, and agricultural authorities. This will provide visibility. Customs clearances can be faster and regulated. Look at blockchains and things like this, these type of systems that can really enhance this. We need real financial and finance for supply chains, experienced leaders employed, innovation and the correct strategy that encompasses the raw farmers all the way to the consumers, including processing, cold chain transport, and value-add services. This can lead to more inclusive and widespread rural development, income increases for the farmers, and poverty reduction, and increased nutrition and a choice of foods. The time now is to act, Africa. It is up to you. We wish you all the best in this, but we really need to have a look at not only the African but the global marketplace. Imagine what can really be done with full cooperation and focus, along with clear financial investments, with dedicated professionals, with concise goals set out by the food needs of a new Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. So sorry we cannot have you here. Yeah, At Agra, we work very hard to build up the value chain for agricultural products, no matter for consumption here within Africa or export to other markets. One of the key jobs that I've been given from our leadership is to promote collaboration and coordination among different actors along the supply chain, especially between international investors and local producers, smallholder farmers particularly, so that to reduce risk and improve efficiency of the value chain. So today, I'm very happy to have 5 panelists to join us. To save time, I'm not gonna go through their beautiful, wonderful profile. I'm just gonna introduce them one by one and have them speak right after my introduction. First of all, I would like everybody to welcome Ms. Lü Cuifeng, Cuifeng Lü, the chairwoman of Great Chain Global. One thing, you only have to know one thing about Madam Lü, that she's the one to bring Kenyan avocado to China. Last year, 1.5 season, only 1.5 season, Kenya got $57 million revenue from those avocados selling to China. And I believe Ms. Lü actually have more exciting news to share later. Let's welcome Ms. Lü. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Rosella Lü Cuifeng. Jason, introduced me. I'm the chairman of Great Chain. Great Chain is committed to the operation and investment of China-Africa agricultural industrial chain and the supply chain. Currently, the African agricultural products involves fresh agricultural products, agricultural and sideline products, aquatic products, and etc. And now, with Great Chain has cooperation teams and quality partners in African countries such as Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Zimbabwe, and Benin. Great Chain has established an agricultural products industrial chain from agricultural products planting, breeding, sealing, pest control, post-harvest management, packing, transportation, fresh keeping technology, environmental protection, and green energy utilization. Accumulated a large number of operational experience and technical standards on how to better transport African agricultural products from the place of origin to the table of consumers in China. And we successfully operated the first batch of fresh avocado from Kenya to China last year. And join hands with the local government, embassy, and the Chinese customers to open up the green channel for African agricultural products to China, and continuously let more African high-quality agricultural products to the Chinese market. Great Chain will continue to create African history with its own professional team and technology, and continue to lead the industrial upgrading cooperation between China and Africa. Great Chain is currently helping many African countries to establish agricultural product supply chains, such as avocado, chili, citrus, pineapple, mango, cassava, and sunflower meal, etc. And we're using Great Chain's technology and resources to open the Chinese market. At the same time, the establishment of agricultural product supply chain from Africa to China has also encountered many challenges in Africa, such as cold chain transportation, cold chain terminal operation, and cold chain storage and preservation. which are all obstacles that restrict African agricultural products from going to China. Therefore, Britain cooperates with the local government to build agricultural products infrastructure, invest in cold chain terminals and cold chain warehousing, and let more African agricultural products be imported to China. This year, we will fully cooperate with the Tanzania Ministry of Agriculture, and the Tanzania avocados will soon be exported to China for the first time. In the future, more Tanzania agricultural products will open the Chinese market, and Britain will invest heavily in Tanzania's agriculture. I believe that China-Tanzania agricultural cooperation will reach a new height in the future. Now, we are trying the best to work for the Tanzania agricultural transformation for avocado and chili, to upgrade the value chain of both of them. Last, may I mention the slogan of Tanzania Ministry of Agriculture, Kilimo ni Biashara. Thank you very much.
Let's give applause to Tanzania. Okay, now we have the trader from China, trader and facilitator from China. How about we listen to some even more internationalized company? Let's welcome Mr. Vinod Kumar from Wilmar Rice, Tanzania.
Good morning, Jasui. So my name is Vinod. So I look after one of largest rice mill of Africa. We are located at Morogoro. It's a $55 million plus investment. We started with 300 metric ton, and by next year, June, expansion is underway. So it will be a 1,150 metric ton largest mill. So I look after the operations and challenges since past 16 years. I'm in Africa, from West Africa 10 years to now 4.5 years in East Africa, Tanzania. And when it comes to the logistics side, so whether it is warehousing, transportation, shipping, and export import, and other stakeholders like the participant like labor and policies, governments. So quite well grinded into the process, and we will be discussing more the way session will progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Thank you very much. I believe later you can tell us your biggest headache. I understand you have some headache. Let's save it for the second round of question.
Sure.
Okay. So we heard from multinationals. We heard from global traders. How about we listen to someone really working in the field? Next, let's welcome Ms. Yi Li, the CEO of FarmWorks Kenya.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. So hi, everyone. My name is Yi. I'm CEO and co-founder at FarmWorks. We're an agri-tech business based in Kenya. So we're still one of the younger businesses in Kenya. And what we do is we work with smallholder farmers, currently in Kenya, in central Kenya, currently about 5,000 of them. And then we're providing ecosystem of trainings, of inputs, and then finally aggregation and distribution services for our farmers. So we are becoming one of the larger local distributors of some of the staple goods in Kenya. So every month we're distributing hundreds of tons of tomatoes and onions in the local market to thousands of the different markets around the country. In addition, we also are doing export and certification for the farmers. So right now we're still quite small. We export about 100 metric tons a month to Europe with all the certifications. In doing so, we're hoping to transform what the farmers are farming, not only subsistence farming, but moving them into higher value cash crops where income is higher. And then secondly, how they're farming. We do a lot of trainings of climate resilient agricultural practices for the farmers so they can become more well equipped to deal with the climate changes that is coming. And I completely agree with Dr. Chen that in this process, we saw a lot of challenges with the supply chain that's very much broken and fragmented, both in the local market and in the export market. And then individual smallholder farmers cannot solve these challenges on their own. There needs to be big businesses and private sector and more efforts that come in to help aggregate and solve the challenges. And I'm looking forward to discussing more of that with all of you today.
Thank you, Yi. I'm not saying I'm old, but every time I talk with my friend Yi, I feel old. You probably have no idea how popular she is in China. Everywhere she goes, she's like a pop star, talking to all youngsters in China, in Shanghai, in Beijing, in Guangzhou, in Shenzhen. She will solely stand up on the stage, well, sometimes like a stand-up comedy, right? And discuss what she has experienced in Africa. You probably don't know, Li Yi, educated in America, got a fantastic consulting job in one of the biggest consulting, sorry I cannot say the name, in one of the biggest consulting firm in the world, earning a very high payment, but then she decided she wanted to do agriculture in Africa. The true reason I want to invite Li Yi over here to meet everybody at AGRF, because I want to tell African young people, if a Chinese girl can travel this far away to do agriculture in Africa, then you can do it. That's a big sign I really want to share. And Li Yi is just too humble to discuss this. So we talk about farming, we talk about aggregating, we talk about trading. How about we now shift to processing? Let's welcome Mr. Barry Chao from Sinultan Industrial Park. It's one of the biggest industrial park, not only in Tanzania, but also in Africa. Let's welcome.
Thank you so much. Barry Chao is my name. I'm from Sinultan Industrial Park, which is an industrial park which is 80 kilometers from where we're sitting now. Basically, the industrial park is going to aggregate a number of economic activities from different sectors. And you'll find all the infrastructural connection available at that place, including rail network, which is very, very important for logistics. You'll find enough power there. You'll find connected to the roads, which is connected to the highways in this country. So that place is connected to the rest of Tanzania and the rest of the world. Near the industrial park, there's a dry port, which is an extension of the seaport. So the investment is to the tune of above $300 million. But we said when you are zoning that place, we have to support the government initiatives in improving agriculture infrastructure. And we have allocated out of the 6 zones, 1 zone is dedicated to agri-processing. And we've been encouraging investment into agri-processing because we know it's going to improve value addition, but also as a raw material in this country, most of it is agri, coming into the processing at that place. So we are geared to play that role, which is a very important role for a country like Tanzania, where 70% of the population is dependent on agri. Thank you so much.
I'm a development economist by training, and special SEZs, special economic zones, industrial zones was one of my focus. I lead a small team, a small task force, UNDP Asia Pacific before I joined AGRA. And our job is to help African government to develop their industrial zones. And as far as I know about Sinultan, I'm just very happy that they're focusing on agricultural processing. This is what a country like Tanzania most needed. Since we talk about the Sinultan, how about we shift our light to Ms. Xuewei Li. She's the director for international cooperation from China-Africa Business Council, and she came all the way from Beijing, China. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Suki from China-Africa Business Council. And firstly, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Cheng Cheng and AGRA. Very honored to be invited here to exchange views with experts and friends today. So, firstly, let me give you a brief introduction about our council. The China-Africa Business Council is an international chamber of commerce. We all know that AGRA is firstly proposed by Mr. Kofi Annan, and our council is also first proposed by Mr. Kofi Annan in 2005. And we jointly initiated by UNDP and the Chinese government. After 16 years of development, now the council serves over 3,000 companies, and our network has reached all of the African countries. The members were from different sectors, including infrastructure, manufacturing, energy, pharmaceutical, e-commerce, industrial zones, and what's most important, agriculture. And Great Chain is a vice chairman's unit of our business council. All of our membership companies has a total investment of over 20 billion USD dollars and creating 1.6 million local jobs. And our aim at the first beginning is to promote the Chinese private sector to come into Africa continent to jointly build a better world. So in 2017, CBC was recognized as a special consultant in ECOSOC and General Observer in UNCTAD, which is the first council of its kind in China, to better serve the FOCAC mechanism since 2021. CBC is publishing the report on Chinese investment in Africa on a regular basis. And here, I'd like to share some of our findings from our last year's report, which is focusing on the Africa supply chain. So the report aims to analyze Africa's supply chain, including the current status, the challenges it faces, and how it increased with the rise of the world. We think that supply chain development in Africa is very essential for the achievement of United Nations Sustainable Development Goal and also the AU Agenda 2063. So in our report, we give 11 cases of studying from each different sector, and including Great Chain. They are one of our case of study. We analyze how they overcome all of the obstacles in Kenya and finally ship the avocado to China. Very congratulations to Great Chain again. And here are some of the findings we find. We think that for supply chain, there are 5 key sectors, which is production, inventory, location, transportation, and information. And in our report, we also initiated 8 interesting actors on contributing on these supply chain developments. And we also give 32 suggestions for the Chinese and Africa stakeholders. Because of time limited, I stop here. And if you'd like to read more about our report, you can download our report from our visual website and hope to exchange more views with all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think it's enough for greetings. Let's get to real business. To be honest, I really want those ladies and gentlemen sitting on the panel to fully fire up to what really, I don't know how many people sitting here are in the real business. Let's talk about your biggest headache, considering value chain, supply chain, and logistics here in Africa. How about we start from Ms. Liu, the chairwoman of Great Chain Global.
Thank you. I think for me, I'm very familiar with the Africa logistics. I opened the business in Africa, almost 13 countries all over the whole Africa. And in Tanzania, also we set up the logistic business here for more than 10 years. Yeah, so I love Africa. Yeah, I know. So this is why we opened the business for the agriculture business from Africa to China. Yeah, just I mentioned that in Africa, the logistic is very important to link the trade, the foreign trade between Africa and China. If we want to import more and more the fresh agricultural products from Africa to China, the how to store it, how to transportation, how to keep fresh. This is very, very important, and this is the bottleneck of the whole business. So this is why these days we want to discuss with the local government how to resolve this problem, this challenge. Yeah. Now we try to in Tanzania and also in Kenya to set up the cold chain management. Now we have we want to use the PPP model to build the cold chain in Tanzania to push the fresh Tanzania avocado, the dried chili, the mango, and also maybe the aquatic products from here to China. Yeah. So this is the obstacles that we faced, but now it is the time that we must resolve this problem as soon as possible. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lui. I totally agree with you. This is the right time as a lead on Asia partnerships. I assure you, there is a lot of investment coming from emerging markets to Africa, and not only for trade, but also for local consumption. And I believe Wilma is one of the leaders on it. How about we shift it to Mr. Kumar and hear about your biggest headache in the value chain?
So, being a factory owner or head of processing, so I know a lot of audience and among of us have gone through that phase, okay? So, in a factory there are a lot of departments, or in business there is a lot of departments, finance, HR, logistics. So if you ask if a African manager or a person who is running a business owner, what is your biggest nightmare? He will say logistic, transportation, warehousing. Because that is the segment of the business where the maximum attention and time is getting spent, and there are so many stakeholders, starting from the farm aggregation, from village level to the primary logistic, from primary logistic to the secondary collection hub or market, then sorting, grading, then bringing to the warehouse, then doing the primary transport to secondary transport by main road, 30 ton, 20 ton, and if you are in perishable goods like milk, meat, fish, or wet paddy, or avocado, they are highly perishable commodities. If you don't give good attention, your millions of dollars can just go away like this, okay? And when it comes to the African continent, or when it comes to the Tanzania, East Africa or West Africa, there are a lot of factors which make this business segment so challenging, so inefficient, that most of the companies, they give away their business ideas, or they wind out their business because they are not able to manage this segment very well. Now come to the food side. Why the logistic and transportation or warehousing is so important. Whatever food we consume close to 50% of the cost of that particular food item goes to this segment. It's very important. 10 to 20% mismanagement in this logistic and transportation can kill your company, no matter how big you are, whether you are in processing or whether you are in the export trading. If your logistic, warehousing and primary aggregation and procurement is not in line, it's not. Then the second thing which make it more complicated and challenging is that the entire East Africa or West Africa, the most of the agro commodities which we buy for 3 months, 6 months, whether for the local processing or taking it to the export point of view, the window is so small, 60 days, 90 days, all the production, because everything is linked with the good rain. If good rain is there, production is there, volume is there. Now, if you don't work 24 into 7 into 365 days, it is always a nightmare for you how to manage these operations. So, being 10-15 years plus in this industry across West Africa and East Africa, we have found out that there are lot of bottlenecks, and on those bottlenecks there are few components which are beyond our control, but 90% of the bottlenecks is within our control, and if all the stakeholders sit down together, it's easy to win over them. The few big bottleneck, first is the infrastructure. Our primary road, to be very honest, does not exist. So what happens? Most of the productions, either it happens in the foothill of the mountains or on the top of the mountains or in the natural floodplains. So the road assessment to those areas, when after a 3 month or 6 month of rainy season, when you go with smallest vehicle, even though with Boda or a 2 metric ton, 5 metric ton truck, no matter how good driver you are, you can't navigate in those roads. Very difficult, challenging job. Second thing, somehow when rainy season is over, there are local roads, they are motorable, accessible to the farm area. Farm area itself don't have the particular specific divided road to make the easy access. I can see I salute the people who is doing coffee farming, tea farming and avocado farming and high altitude. And I see how they struggle. Or the spices farmers, 1, 2 bag, 3 bags by bicycle, motorcycle, bullock cart. Then everything, one bag, 30 kilo, 50 kilo, 100 kilo has to get aggregated in 30 metric ton. Then that 30 metric ton comes at a aggregation center and it starts with the main road. So the first is the infrastructure. Infrastructure not only in the primary logistic road but the secondary road, which for example in Tanzania or in any West or East African country, a product has to minimum travel 600 to 1000 kilometer. It take minimum 1 week. The turnover time of trucking is so poor compared to the lot of countries. You go to the China, India or Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, or even the African countries like Egypt or Middle East, the product which can be shipped in 3 days from farm level to the shipping area, here it takes 10 days, 12 days. And if something goes wrong with your logistic partner or transport manager or something happens on the road like big accident or something because of single way or two-way line, limited alternative routes available, a product can spoil in the container or in the truck itself also. The third thing, the regulatory point of view. So the policies, because since we have the limited revenues, the government is also have like limited revenues to generate the profitability. So the transport, marine, shipping, and warehousings, it comes under a lot of industries. So if I name some of institutes or let's say the key sectors, either they are related with the safety, security, health, hygiene, quality, QA/QC, or revenue authorities, or fire and rescue, and so name on it. So most of the times we find it out that there is a very limited collaboration between the inter-department and inter-ministries, because there is no single window system where you can go and get all the certificate or all the rule and regulations at one place. Most of the agencies, they overlapping in same kind of regulation. For example, when you buy 1 bag of rice or paddy or something, You pay at local level, local revenue, local levy, then you come to the regional level. From regional level, you come to the central or national level. So all these factors, they make very inefficient. Last and not least, the fuel and trucking cost or shipping cost. We are not manufacturers. African countries, most of the countries, they are import dependent. So we can't control more, but by efficient taxation system, by efficient incentives, we can improve a lot. Last point, okay, sorry for my long speech. So here our cost goes 15 to 20% on the raw material side. If we are processor, again 25 to 30% cost. So this 50% cost in rest of the part in Europe or Asia, close to 20%. So how we will compete with those products? Very difficult. That is the reason that most of the other countries, they are able to sell their product here, and locally manufactured processed product are not going beyond the territory of particular country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. I'm very happy you touched upon infrastructures and the challenges faced by smallholder farmers. So let's hear some news from smallholder farmers.
Thank you. I can really emphasize with what the two panelists just shared, because infrastructure, logistics, warehousing is truly a huge part, I think, of the challenges. At FarmWorks, as I mentioned, we work a lot with the smallholder farmers, so I'm going to talk about some of the production side challenges. Given that we're at AGRF, I'm sure a lot of the audience have also been running programs or, working with smallholder farmers. One of the mission of FarmWorks is to disrupt the way that we're supporting farmers. In my years of working, I've noticed a lot of inefficient and ineffective ways of supporting farmers, and then we're trying to create models that is more transformative and directly impactful, right? I used to wonder, how come not more companies, right, large commercial agriculture companies, are sourcing from smallholder farmers? I really had this question for a very long time, given that most of our population is farmers and production is coming from there. And then I went to talk to some of them, and they're telling me, do you know how hard it is to source from thousands of smallholder farmers? Do you know how hard it is to manage all of them, right? And this is why many large companies would rather have their own large commercial farms or work with very, very large farmers, or even if you are a processor in Kenya, you are probably importing your raw material because that's easier to deal with than trying to source from smallholder farmers locally. That is reality on the ground. So when I started working in this business, I started seeing the challenges myself, right? For example, we give inputs as a loan to our farmers at the beginning of the season, expecting them to use the inputs to plant what I ask them to plant and sell that back to me, right? A few things could go wrong in this process. Number one, they could take your inputs, hide it under their bed, and then sell it to their neighbor and never plant it, right? So then at the end of the season, you're like, you never gave me any harvest, right? And then you never recover the money. This is happening all the time, right? Number two, maybe they have taken your inputs and then planted what you told them to plant. But at the end of the season, a broker comes by, offers cash, or offers 1 shilling higher, then they will sell it out to them, right? Rather than giving it back to you. So there is a lot of operational challenges in trying to manage thousands farmer program, let alone our ambition is to working with millions of farmers, right? Similarly, when we're trying to change their behavior, it's not like a farmer just listen to you and say, because you are the teacher or you know best, or like change our behavior and start applying what you say is right. So these are the challenges that we're noticing that is making working with smallholder farmers difficult. And then the model that FarmWorks is using is quite high touch. Number one is we have a lot of field officers working with the farmers. Every farmer gets at least one visit from us physically every 2 weeks, and to make sure that they're following the program. Number two is we have collection centers, and we also have production units of up to 30 farmers where we group them and have a bit of group accountability, borrowing from how MFIs work in this space. And then lastly, for the training, we do what I call A/B testing for farmer practices. So every season, we do farmer plots where we do half the plot their practice, half the plots our recommended practice, so that every week the farmers come together and observe what is working. And then this is the only way we notice that really transform farmer behavior, because they like to see with their own eyes and work with their own hands. So once they have gone through the season with us and notice a difference in the yield, then they start actually changing their behavior. Texting them or just telling them does not work, but showing them how it works in their own plot has really transformed how they want to farm with us. So those are some of the challenges, and I think we continue to solve not all of them, but some of them along the way. And I'm sure there are many innovative methods that I can learn from all of you also in how to work effectively with smallholder farmers.
Very interesting take, and I really hope we can continue the discussion like this forever. But unfortunately, our time is limited. So, if I may, can I have just a couple of words from Mr. Barry and then from Ms. Lee, very quickly? Thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you so much. The previous speakers have mentioned the main challenge is the transport or logistics component. And when you're developing the industrial park or agri park, definitely that is what we are closely looking at. And when you're doing that kind of an investment, stakeholders includes even the government itself, because the internal infrastructure is by the developer, the connecting infrastructure is by the government. Now, industrial park could be a new, somehow new concept, at least in this part of the region. Not very new, but somehow new. So there should be some realignment so that to support this kind of infrastructure to make logistics easier for operators who are going to be in those industrial park, so that component, which is said to be the main headache, the cost of logistics or transportation, is well taken care of. So that is also our main headache when it comes to developing an industrial park.
Thank you, Barry. Shui, please.
Thank you very much. And all of our panelists have talked about their obstacles. I think even there's obstacle, there's opportunity. And I would like to share some of our findings through our report. Firstly, to improving the added value of the products and original trade. And for the infrastructure, we all know that for the Chinese companies, they have helped the African government to build a lot of infrastructure on roads, on railways, a lot of things. And we hope that in the future, we can adopt more digital solutions to Africa continent. And what's most important, I think, in farmers, in agriculture, women are very important in this sector. We all know that women works a lot in the farmers, that helps a lot. And we hope that in the future, through the South-South Cooperation and through China, Africa, the whole global society, Africa will have a bright future. And the CBC is here to provide a lot of solutions with our Chinese membership companies and all of the stakeholders in the international way, and also with the African people together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shui. And I want to point out, before I joined AGRA, I know nothing about agriculture. Absolutely nothing. But now I can sit in here, talk about everything. When I travel into China and other Asian countries, people invite me over to give a talk. Why? I have to thank my mentor here in AGRA, Dr. Nega Wubana. And please welcome him to give a wrap-up talk of our session today. Thank you.
That's fine. Stand there. Yeah. Thank you, Chen, for organizing this session and for the distinguished panel. It was really an interesting discussion, and we've heard all the familiar problems with logistics and building resilient supply chains. So the key issues here are, one, resilient, and the second one is inclusivity. We have seen in the last few years, especially the last 3 years, impacts of COVID and Russian-Ukraine conflicts have disrupted important value chains, food value chains especially. In COVID, we have lost how farmers have lost livelihood because of disruption of export markets, and even domestic end markets with hotels and restaurants closing down. And we also are familiar with the international geopolitical conflicts that has caused disruption in supply chains. And in terms of inclusivity, we're looking how we can integrate poor smallholder farmers and women and youth into this profitable and value chains. Lee raised a number of issues related to production side, and Kumar very interesting issues on transport and logistics, storage, and also some of the policy and regulatory related disruptions to the value chains. I myself implemented 2 big value chain related programs in Ethiopia over the last 3 years. So the first thing we started was looking at the end markets. We went to agro-processors and we tried to understand what their challenges are, and we tried to work backwards to resolve those problems, starting from the production side by organizing farmers. So what we have seen is that the industry is suffering because of lack of quality raw materials and also adequate volumes. But at the same time, we see the smallholder farmers complaining that they don't have markets. So there is some disconnect here. So what we've done is basically we went backwards. We tried to identify good quality seeds. We worked with government extension system to educate farmers and our extension workers with good agronomy, row planting, spacing, appropriate depths, ways of applying the fertilizer, the timing, the weeding. And we introduced some post-harvest technologies to reduce post-harvest losses. We also organized cooperatives, which Lee mentioned was one of the challenges with dealing thousands of smallholder farmers. So one thing that we have not done as AGRA is basically organize farmer groups or cooperatives, which is also very important for companies to source from a single cooperative. This is backed up with a solid transaction cost theory, right? The costs of search and sourcing from thousands of smallholder farmers is quite challenging, and the quality is variable. And we have issues with side selling, as you mentioned, with traders coming and offering them cash while you are struggling to get access finance from the banks to buy from the smallholder farmers. And then we have issues of post-harvest losses, especially with perishable products. Spending a lot of time at the port and in transport and logistics related issues is really quite challenging. So this requires a concerted effort by government and private sector and development partners to resolve these issues and build resilient supply chains. So from the government side, we need good policy and regulatory framework, basically on issues of land tenure, trade policies, especially related to quality standards, ad hoc interventions in the market, such as export bans, taxes, and many other non-tariff related barriers and regulations. And also government needs to put resources on building infrastructure, roads and power, storage warehouses and cold storage facilities, both to reduce post-harvest losses and for aggregation. The other area is, to enhance productivity at farmer level. We need to enhance research and development capacity from the public sector and producing good varieties and educating farmers with good agronomic practices, etc. And also introduce risk management to support farmers from some unforeseen circumstance, disruption on the production side related to weather patterns or market-related disruptions. And another key aspect is investing on data collection analysis so that governments make informed policy decisions to support the private sector and smallholder farmers, and also PPP. Some of these infrastructures are very expensive for the private sector to build. So government has to put some public goods to buy down some of the risk for the private sector and to leverage the private sector resources. On the private sector side, we need investments in agriculture, in agribusinesses, food processing, and also some logistics facilities, and integrating the value chain down from the processing to the farmer level, building supply chains, how we can source from all the smallholder farmers by supporting them technically, providing inputs and technical assistance to the smallholder farmers, and investing in some technologies such as traceability and precision farming. Excuse me. So, and also introducing sustainable farming, which is some of the activities I learned from meeting Lee the other day. I think you are also involved in regenerative agriculture, as I understand. So these are some of the practice we need. And skill development for farmers and other intermediary value chain actors such as aggregators. And from development partners side, we need financial support as well as technical assistance and capacity building, supporting innovation and research, and supporting monitoring and evaluation activities. So it requires really a concerted effort, but this is an important area where we need to build resilience and inclusive supply chains. Thank you, Chen. Thank you, everyone.
Usually this is time for Q&R, but unfortunately we really don't have time for this because we have some really important people in this room, and I really want to have some quotes, some remark from these two esteemed scholars. I would really want us to welcome Professor Shenggen Fan, the very famous esteemed scholar on agriculture. Please, Dr. Fan.
I will keep it very short because lunch is waiting for us. I really want to thank the panelists. They are really doers. They are the actors. The actor is the third word. They are farmers. They are processors. They are aggregators. They are agro-industry parks, let's say, decision makers. So I wanted to thank you. Should we give them a round of applause to thank for their contribution? Now, I think the couple of things I just want to emphasize from the panelists and also from NAGA. One is trade. Trade is so critical. So Africa has already signed a free trade agreement with the continent. I think Africa needs to sign free trade agreements with more countries outside of Africa, with India, with China, with others. We know that right now the trade system is very vulnerable, very sort of volatile because of geopolitical reasons. So free trade agreements, that's number one. Number two, the foreign direct investment. China, India, Brazil are coming to Africa to invest. Make sure that these FDIs can help to transform agri-food systems. This investment may have nothing to do with food and agriculture. It's highways, railways, and so on, ports. But make sure that the last miles will link to food production, to the whole value chain. So lastly, inclusion. I think inclusion, the farmers are here. Make sure that smallholders here in Africa will have to benefit from the whole African food system transformation. How do we do that? I think the commodity exchange in Ethiopia and also the certain connectives, contract farming, make sure that farmers do benefit. And the multinational companies like Mr. Koma's company, make sure that the smallholders gain a fair share from the whole value chain, like the coffee chain in Rwanda. Make sure that, I think Agnes Kanibata made sure that the smallholders have to have a decent share of the whole value chain. 5% is not enough, 10%, 20%. Actually, I just tell you a very interesting figure. In China, farmers actually gain more than 50% of the whole value chain. Here in Africa, less than 10%. So we can do more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Fan. And next, I want to invite Dr. Qinghua Zhu from BMGF China, in charge of China-Africa Cooperation Projects. Please.
Thanks, Chen. What I'm trying to say now, the partnership is so critical, especially for the country-led programs in Africa here. So what I can share some of the learnings from China. China, I think if you look at China and Africans, they share similar environment, especially from agriculture standpoint of view. 60-70% are small households in the country, and So what I think it's important is how we can really to focus on the small household farmers is critical, and I would think the policy it's critical. Really how to making sure the small household farmers can get benefit out of those favorable policies. For the second one is of course those. How we can provide the service, technologies, products, to the hands of smallhouse farmers to helping them to improve productivity. And the third part, I would echo Professor Fan's point. Those persons are really kind of doing all the front work here, really helping smallhouse farmers create jobs for those peoples. So I would say just finally, partnership is important, especially for the Gates Foundation. We are doing China office. It's really trying to how to provide all the, how we can really kind of provide partnership, really doing all the transformative, for the continent in Africa here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zhu. Since you mentioned partnerships, I feel like I have to ask my boss to give the final quote. My boss is Jennifer Barr, our head of partnership at AGRA. And after that, we can all run for our lunch.
Thank you so much. I will not keep you too long. Thank you to an excellent panel. I was actually taking notes as you were speaking on some of the challenges, but also the solutions that you introduced. And it's really an honor to have the opportunity to partner with you and have you here at the AGRF. And I truly hope to see you next year in Kigali, Rwanda, talking about how you managed to create bigger and better opportunities for our farmers here. But in closing remarks, and I really won't make it long, we need action. And I think in creating action, it also means working together, collaborating, and bit by bit addressing all of the critical challenges that have been showcased here. At AGRA, we're ready to partner. We don't always have instant solutions, but we do understand the complexity of operating in this ecosystem and actually making sure that we deliver on the triple bottom line in terms of people, in terms of planet, and in terms of production and creating food security. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the summit.
Thank you, Jennifer. That'll be all for today's session. If you have any questions, you're welcome to discuss with our panelists in private. Thank you very much. Let's welcome all the panel and Professor Fan, Dr. Zhu, and Jennifer. I'll step on the stage, take a good picture. Thank you. Thank you all, and Nega, please. Thank you all for attending this session. Thank you.